All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. This is episode 13 of the Veteran Growth Podcast. I'm sitting with David Gran. We've been pushing this Skype call because we're trying to innovate the show, bring a little bit better sound quality to you guys. I'm very excited to bring David on the show today, just because of all the things David has done with business, the military. He's a pioneer. So, David, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on today. Welcome to the Veteran Growth Podcast. And how is your day going?
Hey, it's going pretty good. Thanks for having me, Kyle. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about military by owner and just what's going on today with the world of veteran companies.
Absolutely. I'm excited as well. Military by owner is something that fascinates me. I'm very excited to just keep shedding light on it to more people who might need it. Can you give us a little bit of a background about your military career? You're a Marine. I know I messed up earlier and said he was in the Army, and I don't think he liked that too much. But David, you are a Marine, so tell us a little bit about your military background.
Sure. I grew up in a small town on a lake in northern Illinois, and my dad was a Navy pilot, so I was always surrounded by other pilots. I think at the time he was an airline pilot, when I was growing up, but he was still in the reserves. And so I was always kind of around the guys that he served on an aircraft with in the Navy. So military was always in the back of my mind. And I ended up going to college in Southern Illinois in an aviation program. And I was a flight instructor. I was teaching, I think by my junior year, I was teaching the new college kids how to fly. And I'm standing out there on the flight line one day, and a Marine in dress blues comes up to me and says, like, he's got this giant secret. It's like, he's looking left, he's looking to the right, making sure nobody's listening. He goes, "Do you know anybody that wants to fly high performance aircraft?" And I'm like, it was just so hilarious. I was like, yeah, everybody out here. And then next thing you know, he's got like a little trainer aircraft there with a Marine lieutenant pilot. And I don't know, about 4 months later, I'm at Officer Candidate School. I come back to graduate from college, and I get commissioned, and I head to Quantico to the basic school. So that was in 1983. I retired in 2004. A lot of going on in between that time. So I retired after about 21 years. And that was 14 years ago. So I keep getting further and further from those dates.
Feel younger or no?
Do I feel younger?
Yeah. Does the life, the business, everything, is it keeping you young still, I hope?
Yeah, I think, I got some good advice from another Marine, when I was younger. He said, you got to be like a shark. You stop moving, you die. And I think that I think there's a lot to that. Now, you get a little bit older, you don't have as much energy, but when I started, when I started this company, I was 39 years old. So I mean, I'm 57 now.
How long have you been? Because for some of you that may not know, you started this company while you were still serving, correct?
Correct.
So how long had you been in the military before you started this? Walk us through the process of sort of just getting the idea to start what you have created. I mean, you've built sort of a legacy, and you've done a ton of things. We'll get into like some of the things you did to build a business, but what's it for you to just create more of a way of for finding housing, when you're PCSing or transferring?
Yeah. Well, I guess the biggest thing is that, I was doing it myself, so for 20 or so years, we're at one duty station in one unit, and you get orders, you go to another unit, and and during that time you kind of learn there's some things, at least back then, even some things were a lot more of a challenge. whether you're living on base, whether you're going to rent, whether you're going to buy. It's kind of a stressful time in your life, and sometimes things work out easily, and sometimes it's pretty difficult. So, our thought was, why don't we? Well, essentially, the way it started was we were just moving back from Europe. I was stationed as the G2 or intelligence officer for Marine Forces Europe in Stuttgart, Germany, and we were moving back to the States, Northern Virginia. Actually, my job was going to be in the Navy Annex to the Pentagon. And we bought a house in Stafford, Virginia. And we're home for Christmas. And I'm talking to my dad and I'm saying, boy, I hope we, don't get a quick set of orders and lose money on this house. And he said, doesn't the military have anything to hook you guys up? And I said, I don't know. So what do you do in 1999 when you get a question like that? You get on AOL. So you do a search. I did an AOL search. I called around. I asked some friends, and there wasn't really coming up with anything. So we drove down to the Best Buy in Fredericksburg, Virginia, bought Microsoft Front Page for $129, and built the first version of the website that weekend.
Wow.
And that was.
You say you're a co-founder, correct?
Yeah, my wife and I.
Oh, okay, got you. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so that I'd say you asked earlier. So I was probably like in about 16, 17 year mark in the Marine Corps, and we're doing this on nights and weekends. We thought it was a good idea. One of our first marketing campaigns was kind of hilarious. We spammed the AOL member database.
I was going to say that myself because I heard about that and it was very impressive. So I'm glad you're talking about this. So I wanted you to tell people how much of a pioneer you were back in the 90s, because I don't think people today understand how much power they have with the internet. And maybe hearing somebody like yourself talk about how you had to market and spam AOL and stuff. I don't know. Go into that though.
Well, I mean,
let me hear it.
Nowadays with websites and all that, we've got social media, search engine optimization, paid search, paid social, and then all the traditional marketing methods. And, probably let's just say early 2000s, Google really wasn't a known entity to most people yet. It existed, but it really wasn't that well known. So a lot of people were on America Online. So,
yeah.
And just when I say I spammed AOL, spam was not a word yet. So we would go on into the search member profiles on like Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and then we would write down all these AOL email addresses, and then we would individually email people to tell them about military by owner. And nowadays you're lucky if you get like a 10 or 15% open rate on a newsletter. We're getting like 99% open rates on these emails because nobody's getting spammed. Everybody's excited to get an email. And a lot of people are even replying saying, hey, thanks for thinking about me, which, now you'd get a nasty email back saying, hey, did I ask for this email?
That's if you even get a reply or an open. That 90-some percentage is probably down to maybe 3%.
Yeah. So, so everything was new. I mean, there were websites out there, but everything from how do we get found to how do we, how do we get a web host to put the domain up, so people can find us. I mean, building a website is kind of like building a big highway billboard in your basement, and all your neighbors are driving by and they can't see the billboard because it's in your basement. And that's the same thing with a website, Yeah. I mean, you have to be found.
What did you do essentially what was your plan of attack? How did you plan to expand from, did you just start calling people? Is that what you were emailing folks about?
Yeah.
How did that go? How did you guys grow? How did it
Well,
take off?
the first couple years, it was pretty heavily word of mouth in the military community. But also at the same time, we're actually in commerce. We're actually a business. I mean, people are putting homes on, and people are contacting them, and they're getting good leads, and they're renting their home or they're selling their home. So when somebody successfully finds a good tenant, they tell people about it. And so when I say word of mouth, it wasn't me telling people that, hey, we started this business, please pass the word. No, it was our customers that were having success, and they were passing the word. So
Was this did AOL have like search engine capabilities by then? So I mean, could people look for
yeah,
home online yet, or was that? I mean, I know that probably wasn't a very big thing
there was a
at
little
all
bit
if
of
it was
that,
even
but there were
around.
also browsers back then too, called like Netscape and
Oh
other
yeah,
browsers pre-Chrome, pre-internet. Well, there were browsers pre-Chrome, pre-Internet Explorer, and all that were going to different types of search engines that were not necessarily prime time. So it was just a different way. It was just kind of at the beginning stages, and we were able to kind of learn how to be found, on the search engines that did exist, and we were even doing some paid search pre-Google, okay, through a company called Overture. And
I've heard of that.
and it was just a matter of, just like anything else in life, okay, you got a problem, solve it. And there was no YouTube videos to watch. It was a little bit more difficult than that, but still there were those internet gurus out there that were, that had newsletters, and there were message boards and all that kind of stuff to learn how to do different things. So, essentially, I guess the message is that, much like today, you have a business problem, you solve the business problem one step at a time.
I agree. What was that? I think you were talking about with the gears, right? The everything is like a gear. You got to notch it one step forward and lock it in, and
Yeah.
towards that next notch. And don't let it slip, or it'll, slip back 2 to 3 notches, basically.
Right. I mean,
Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, everything that you do, whether it's you're just starting a business, or whether you have an existing business and you're trying to expand it, or you're trying to add a new product or service, or you just, let's just say you get a part-time employee that's in a different state. There's, especially, now with all your ability to work from home and work remotely, I mean, there's just a lot of different things you need to do, and you just can't get overwhelmed by them. You just got to take them piece by piece. And some of the things are just like work, you just got to do it. And some of the things are trial and error. And, with an internet business, a lot of it is trial and error, because, especially with marketing, because you don't know what's going to work. What you think is going to work,
might not.
Well, I guess the bottom line is, don't ever think that you know what's going to work. Test it, because we've made some huge mistakes in the past, where well, it was okay. So I'll give you an example. So we were going to do a really big dollar marketing spend. But before we got to that point, the reason why we jumped in on it is because I was trying to advertise with this company for years, and they would ignore me. They wouldn't answer my emails. They wouldn't acknowledge our existence. And then one day, they contacted us, asking us if we wanted to advertise. And I remember talking to my wife, Sharon, saying, I feel like Steve Martin in The Jerk when he just found his name in the white pages. I was like, okay, I guess we're big enough to advertise now. So with this company, so we did, and we jumped in. What we should have done is we should have done a smaller test, but we jumped in with a really big dollar campaign, and it was a bomb. And This was a total disaster. Um, this was a military market. This was a military website that I thought was going to be a total perfect match to our demographic, and it wasn't. And so I mean, you want to talk about 3 steps back? That was 3 steps back. But
I think the idea of that was just 15 years ahead of its time, probably.
Well, the other thing is that you don't really, I mean, there's probably too many variables to talk about in a short, interview. But the bottom line is that you really just have to test everything you do to see if it works. I mean, not only the target market or the audience, but also what you're pitching them. It may be the perfect audience, but it's the wrong time.
What time frame did you do all that and realize that that wasn't working? It was bomb.
That was probably in the 2004, 5, or 6 time frame.
So in 2010 and 11, and you guys made the Inc. 5000 list, right?
Right.
Tell us what that means. What does that entail? Not you don't have to go too far into depth, but just
it's basically just a measure of business growth based on revenue over a 3 or 4 year period. I thought it was 3, but someone told me recently it's 4. I don't know if they changed it, so I can't remember. But it's revenue growth over like a 3 or 4 year rolling period, and it's private companies as opposed to publicly traded companies. So, so we made that list of one of the fastest growing private companies in the country.
I wanted to point that out because that was just a couple years after you probably had a couple very gut checking moments of trial and error causing you to think maybe about giving it up or maybe about trying something new. There's a lot of people come to those points in life and they stop just before they reach that Inc. 5000 mark with their company.
Yeah. I mean, we had growth, even during those tough times that I was describing, but it was, what I was trying to basically talk about is that, we made some huge mistakes, with the advertising, and, they weren't business killers, but just think of what we could have done if we would have put that towards something that, we would have had a better return on. Our growth would have been faster, would have been larger. So it's just a point. I guess the overall point to people is that you don't know, you got to test. And if it's an internet business, you got to test.
Be receptive to failure a little bit. Welcome it in some ways, or just acknowledge that failure is necessary and to just try, like you said, and keep trial and error until you get it down. I want to know too. So with all of your smarts that you seem to have with where the internet was going to head, how well it was going to be able to be used for business, things like that. Like I said earlier, you're definitely a pioneer, in my opinion, of somebody who's really smart with just the internet before everybody really knew about it. And a lot of people knew about it, but not like they do now, And so did you get all that? I know you're educated in things, but like, where did that real just faith in the internet come from with you? Did you get that from being in the Marines, being in Intel? I mean, how did you learn the power of the internet and what it was going to be able to do to create what you wanted to create?
Well, I think it was just basically we were early adopter personal computer owners. It was like I had an Apple IIc before we had an internet connection. I had an Apple IIc for years before we had an internet connection. I mean, I was just using it for a word processor, spreadsheets, games, things like that. And, and then we just kind of rolled into that system where, as soon as that thing got old and started falling apart, we got another one. Next thing you know, we're on the internet. And, so you kind of, we're internet consumer, to a certain degree, not like an e-commerce stores like there are today and have been for a long time, but, basic research, things like that. I knew a little bit about we didn't call them websites, but I knew a little bit about HTML from being a Marine intelligence officer, because on some of our classified systems, we used HTML to pass files back and forth, or had little, what were the equivalent of web pages. And that's how we passed data from one. Like when I was on a Marine Expeditionary Unit, I was a intel officer for what's called a MU. And then when we're going into the Persian Gulf or coming out, we'd exchange a lot of files and images and things like that. And we could do that via web pages, even though I didn't know it was a web page.
Right. That's what I'm asking, because I was kind of wondering. Yeah. Just trying to wrap my head around, because I was very, very little in the 90s. So I mean, I didn't have a mind of my own to kind of see the interweb unfold like it did, almost. You know what I mean? So
well, I don't know if I saw that. And I guess the bottom line is that I always wanted to own a business.
Yeah.
And so it came to this time. Still to this day, every time I come up with a business idea, I buy the domain. Even if I own like 150 domains that I'm never gonna do anything else with except pay the annual fee on, right? Okay, right. But I have like coffeespook.com, trawlerintelligence.com, because I like trawler boats. Just if you come up with an idea, like a content site idea, buy the domain. I've always been like that, but it's before this, it was not buying domains. It was just like writing an idea down in a notebook and say, hey, maybe someday, when I got the time, or I'm out of the military, I'll try this out. So when that idea popped up, it was just kind of like a natural step, except that this time, instead of just writing it down, we took a few extra steps.
It's just about that constant action of just the constant pursuit of progression is what I always say. It's just, like you said, constantly just taking action on whatever will get you one step closer to that goal. If your goal was to have that business, you exceeded that goal. And so what I would ask you, and what I want to kind of touch on for the latter part of this show, I guess, would be if we were to get into the mind space of some of the listeners who, whether they're in the military, they were in the military, whether they're not in the military, but anybody that might want to start a business. This is a common thing that comes up on the show. And I want to read this from your questionnaire too, but you put that you think the veteran entrepreneurship is a topic that is on many people's minds these days. The fact that you need to build your network before you need it, the fact of taking action now trumps waiting on everything to be perfect, and the fact that you don't have to hit a home run to be successful. So let's just kind of go from the top of those. I mean, the veteran entrepreneurship is, I think, a popular topic, but like the fact that you need to build your network before you need it, I love that. And I would love for you to touch on what you mean by that. I mean, what are you saying when you put that out there? Because I get it. I love it. I want the listeners to kind of get what,
Yeah. Well, I mean, just with anything in life, particularly business, I mean, your network can not only help you get started, not only from just getting advice, but maybe somebody in your network actually is going to handle a piece of your business. For instance, we have a bookkeeper, we have an accountant, we have tools that we use from other companies, and also consultants from other companies that we use. But before you get to that point where you're doing all that, some of it you're just going to need to be able to reach out to your network and get the advice and get pointed in the right direction. And you might need to get some help. What we're talking about is build your network before you need it, is that, you can't really expect somebody that you meet at a trade show or at a military veteran event or something like that to be willing to help you the weekend after you met them. I mean, you kind of need to nurture these relationships and provide value to other people over time before they're necessarily going to stop what they're doing to give you 30 minutes of their day. So,
What would
everybody
what
you
would you
meet,
go ahead?
I'd say everybody you meet, try to kind of exchange contact information and, see where they're sitting. When you, like, say you meet somebody that's talking about starting a podcast and you've been doing it for, a year, maybe you're not going to necessarily offer them a bunch of tips right off the bat, but hook up with them and say, hey, maybe, if I see something that's changing in the industry, shoot them a note saying, hey, check this out. This is a new tool that you could use to do your podcast better. Provide value to other people. Say, hey, there's a networking event coming up in 2 weeks. You should shoot somebody you met a note. You met them at a different networking event. Make sure that they knew about this other one that's happened. Just little teeny things. Somebody's going to college for electrical engineering, and you read a really cool article about careers after electrical engineering. Just email it to them. And that's what I mean by providing value. It doesn't have to be you got to go work for them or give them a week of your time. It could be you just forward them an article.
I was going to ask too. You kind of answered it in a sense by just providing value. But one of the things I get from a lot of people is that whole question of what their purpose is. If they haven't made a complete product of what's in their head of what they want to do, a lot of times I'll hear people saying, like, it's hard to network. I don't have anything to talk about yet, or it's hard to network. I don't know what to call myself yet, or they're going to think I'm silly because my business hasn't been built yet, but I need help building it. So is that for you? I mean, what's your advice there? That's just all, in my opinion, that comes from fear. That comes from people having fear that they might not naturally know about, so it just takes, in my opinion, a lot of self-development, a lot of habitual work, a lot of like just self-awareness, help for yourself, I guess. What do you think about that? I mean, for people that would say, like, I don't know how to go network or what I would talk about, if they need help, if they're trying to network, but they don't have necessarily like a big business yet, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you don't know how somebody could help you someday. So, maybe you first start off by just trying to meet people and, obviously you're not going to make a friend necessarily at an event, but you can make an acquaintance, and that person exists and they know that you exist. You don't have to have a product or a service to go network. Maybe you're just looking for, what job opportunities are out there, and you're just keeping your ear to the ground. You just say, hey, I don't really know what I'm going to do next, but I know that I got to kind of get out there and network and talk to people and see what the opportunities are. And, so maybe you can't provide value to somebody today, but you can tomorrow.
I like that. I think that's very good advice. It's just about being genuine and really going out and knowing that there's a reason you need strong connections in life and pursuing them, even though you might not know exactly how it's going to unfold. But also, like I said, I would encourage everybody to just be fearless with what they're trying to do,
Yeah.
and really pursue it. Because there are the gaps. There's going to be time lapses where there's not going to be people that see the same vision until it's there in front of their face, So I love that you put that stuff. So thanks for touching on that. I want to kind of move on into basically how we can access Military Buy Owner. I mean, you guys have the website www.militarybuy.com. But run me through. I'm in the Army. I'm getting ready to PCS. I have to get rid of this house. So do people just go to the website, start the process to see what you guys have to offer? You guys offer some wonderful services. I want to give them some sort of guidance on where to go first.
Sure. Well, okay. So Military Buy Owner is a real estate advertising website. So we're working the military niche. So what that means is that the website is based on homes around military bases. Okay. So we advertise homes for sale and homes for rent around all the military bases in the U.S. So you go to the web, let's just say you're at Fort Bragg, and you get orders and you're heading to Fort Benning. You can just go to the Fort Benning page on militarybuyowner.com, and you could search for homes for sale or search for homes that are for rent. You could put your criteria in, what your price range is, how many bedrooms you need, kind of just like any other real estate website, except that we're focused on the military community that's moving from base to base. So you don't have to be in the military to use Military by Owner. You just have to live around a military base. You know, if you don't have a home around a military base to advertise, we can't help you. So, you know, but we do let real estate agents and property managers advertise their properties on the site to include, you know, for sale by owners and for rent by owners, which was originally what the site was created for. You know, so I think like during the peak PCS season, we may have 20,000 people searching for homes on any given day, and you know, hundreds of new homes going on the site every day.
Nice. And what's like, so have sort of just a set radius around each base that you guys span out to? Do you guys have parameters for that? So
it kind of varies. It kind of varies by base. Like if you're out in the middle of the desert, it's a little bit bigger. You know, like at 29 Palms or Barstow. If you're in a kind of a metro area, I'd say probably we try to just, if it's within the commuting distance of the base, like in Southern California, it may be 20, 30 miles. In Washington, D.C. area, it may be 40 or 50 miles. You know, just because people are trying to get out far enough where the housing is cheaper.
Yeah, definitely that. Everybody's always trying to get just the best PCS deals, or, you know, work their BAH out as best as it works or something. I guess that's rent, but I'm very excited that we got to have this chat, because there was actually somebody else who came on the show who had a similar thing they were talking about doing, and I was like, man, I know there's other things out there that are similar. So the way that I like to operate is just seeing what all's out there to make sure we all can join and keep the community together under one net as best as we can, just to help as many people as possible out there. And so, but the things you've done, the things you've accomplished are commendable. I appreciate you taking time to talk to me. It's an honor to have you on my show. And so, yeah, it's been a pleasure. Do you want to leave off with anything? Do you have anything additionally that you?
Sure. Yeah, I guess the only thing that probably I'd like to say is that, you know, we have a lot of we have a really good customer service team, primarily made of military spouses, and we have a bunch of writers that are also military spouses that write a lot of content. So if you go on the site, we have a blog that, you know, pretty much almost every day there's a new content article that kind of meshes together moving in the military, PCS, real estate related topics, and military base specific regional things. And a lot of resource pages where we kind of talk about buying, selling, renting, being a landlord, being a remote landlord, things that you need to kind of consider. So, you know, people could go on Military by Owner and access a lot of those resources just to kind of learn and identify the things that they need to kind of think about in advance before they do a PCS move, or before they decide to rent a home that they bought at one of the duty stations. You know, so it's a good place for resources. We hope everybody comes and checks out the website. We're working really hard. I guess the only other thing is that we've rebuilt the site 4 times.
Yeah. Say that again?
We've rebuilt the site 4 times from scratch, and we're in our 5th time right now, and we're hoping to launch the new website probably in the next 60 days or so.
Yeah, because spring is, like you said, that's like PCS time, right? That's transfer. That's you guys kind of start to kick off and get busy.
Right.
So the website, I believe, though, that you currently had is still, it's live for now. Are you going to be shutting that down at all? Or are you just going to be launching the new one soon?
Well, we can't afford to shut anything down because it's used 24/7. So It's just going to be 1 minute it's going to be the old one, and the next minute it's going to be the new one.
That's how I
And
roll.
then we're going to hope that it works.
I don't even tell people when I update mine. I just hope they enjoy it when they get there. You were talking about the blog, so you guys can go to www.militarybyowner.com if you want to go directly to the blog. Just swap the www for blog. It's blog.militarybyowner.com. I think you guys are also on Instagram and Twitter, all the social media funness.
Right,
So
right.
you can just search for Military by Owner. David, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you for your patience. We're trying to set up this new Skype deal. It was a little chaotic in the beginning, but we got it squared away. So thank you for working with me on that. And I wish you a wonderful 2019. Can I expect to see you anywhere when I go around to like the Military Influencer Conference or any of these other event things we got going on?
Yeah, we were there at the Military Influencer Conference for the last two. Actually, we were one of the sponsors for the last one. And
I think I did see that.
And yeah, we'll be there. I've already bought my tickets for the one in DC this year.
Good. I gotta buy mine soon before they sell out. I don't think they're gonna. I hope they don't sell out soon, but I will be there in DC. Look for me there. I plan to see. That's where I'm gonna meet most of the guests that have been on the show. So I'm very excited. I look forward to meeting all of you and just growing lasting relationships. And once again, thank you, everybody listening. Especially thank you guys. This has been another wonderful episode of the Veteran Growth Podcast. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Come back for more, and we will see you guys on the other side. All right, David, we're done on the Audacity. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording this one.